This is the Skeptic Squared podcast.
A safe place to make light of sacred things.
My name is Matt.
And I'm Corinne.
And in this program, we will be discussing current events related to religion, atheism, and skepticism. Our goal is not to insult believers,
Although that will probably happen from time to time.
but rather to share our point of view on these topics in a way which will benefit and entertain others.
Or maybe we just want to stroke our own egos. You decide.
Hello, and welcome to the Skeptic Squared podcast. Today is January 16th, 2016, and with me is my freshly groomed wife, Corinne.
That's funny. I just got out of the shower.
Yeah. And we're trying a little bit of a different setup with the microphones and recording equipment. Hopefully it won't become too much of a distraction, and we'll still be able to speak normally, and people will be able to hear us. We've just had a few issues in the past with levels and being able to hear everybody. So
Let's do this.
So today we have another movie review.
Yay!
And we looked through the Netflix queue and tried to find a good, Christian, evangelical Christian movie to do a review on.
We really wanted to do Kirk Cameron.
Right, Kirk Cameron, who's like this notorious actor. Well, maybe notorious isn't the right word. He started out on Growing Pains,
Yes.
which was a popular TV show. What was it, 25 years ago, whenever it was. And
My mom watched it, so...
right, and he was something of a teenage heartthrob, and
Yeah.
he was very popular as an actor. And then when he turned 17, so he's like a teen actor, right, during this. And like at the peak of his teen acting career, and like when the show was really hot, he turned into an evangelical Christian. He says that he went from being an atheist to being a Christian. But if you ever hear him talk about that process of going from atheist to Christian, it sounds like he never really even thought about it, and he just didn't have a reason to believe,
Right.
and then he
I
just
think
all
he
of a sudden
equated
did.
not going to church with being an atheist.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of the impression that he gives off.
And he worked in Hollywood.
Yeah,
A bunch of heathens.
exactly, which is very evangelical Christian.
Yeah.
So he does this, and he kind of, from what I understand, rubbed a lot of people the wrong way on the set. Like he would refuse to do certain scenes or do certain scenes in certain ways because it would violate his
Evangelical Christianism.
exactly. Yeah. Like he wouldn't. I can't remember a specific example. There was something to do with like a classic teen scene where the guy would like sleep over in the girl's room or something like that, like without permission, that kind of thing, like sneak in at night,
Right.
or something along those lines.
And he wouldn't do it.
And he wouldn't do it. Like he didn't think that was a good thing to promote. Which it's his right, I suppose. But
Right. But after doing it one way for so long, it's kind of hard to just do a complete 180.
right, and that was the complaint that a lot of his coworkers had was
Right.
all of a sudden he's this different person.
Right. And they didn't want to write that into the character.
Right, and he, of course, being now an evangelical Christian, would see him being a different person as a good thing.
Right.
Anyway, so he's been doing, like he hasn't been in the mainstream Hollywood scene much since the Growing Pains stopped, and he's been doing a lot more like independent films and like religious films. He was the star of the original Left Behind series. He was in Fireproof, which is I never watched the whole thing. I got little snippets of it, but it's like this big metaphor about hell and repenting before the rapture or something along those lines. That's how it's been described to me.
I think this is actually the first movie I've ever watched with him in it. I've never actually watched him as an actor.
Yeah, because he intentionally doesn't do mainstream movies anymore.
Right.
Because he has this idea that Hollywood is some kind of evil corporation that's working against the Christian ideal, and all that kind of conspiracy Christian persecution complex stuff. And so he's been doing all of these Christian movies and things, and so we thought what a great person to do a movie review on, because he puts himself out there. He does a lot of work with Ray Comfort. They do the Living Waters ministry, which you can find clips on YouTube of them talking to people on the street or doing different videos promoting Christianity. And he's like way gung-ho into this Christian promotion. What was the movie that came out last Christmas?
I can't even remember what it's called, but it was an awful movie. It
Right.
was the worst rated movie on IMDb for like 6 months.
Right, yeah. And Rotten Tomatoes just ripped it just ripped it apart.
The preview was awful.
Right, but the thing is, he is an experienced actor, like Kevin Sorbo, right? Like Kevin Sorbo did the Hercules series, which is kind of cheeseball or whatever, but it's a TV show from the '90s, so you don't expect great things from it. But at the same time, they're still experienced, and they have talent, but they are directing it towards a particular demographic, a certain type of movie.
Right.
So when we decided to do the movie Mercy Rule, which is on Netflix, we expected to have that same kind of Christian flair, just over the top, just really
Church
softball,
every other sentence.
Yeah, softball philosophy kind of stuff. Where
Lots of mentions of God.
Yeah, like they give the easy answer to the hard questions.
Right.
Which is kind of what I view a lot of, the Christian movies as being, right? Like it's all answering the hard questions in easy, neatly packaged sort of ways, sound bites and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's what I was expecting.
Well, you still kind of get that. It's just not religious.
Yeah,
overtly. It's not overtly religious.
Yeah, which was surprising to me.
Yes, it was. Very surprising. It kind of started out like it was going to go that way.
Yeah.
Because they have like this brief conversation on a bench, and then it kind of...
Yeah, I was waiting for it
off.
to take that turn
Right.
and just bring in the whole God thing and like have it resolve all their problems and all that kind of stuff. But it just never really happened.
Nope.
They would make a few references and whatever, but about
still
divine
pretty
intervention.
subtle.
But it was pretty subtle. It
Yeah.
wasn't the sort of thing that you wouldn't necessarily get in a more mainstream movie, and that's probably what they were going for because they wanted to have a more mainstream appeal.
Oh, that's definitely what they were going for.
Right,
That's why they cobbled together everything into this one movie.
Right, and they had a bunch of they had decent camera work, they had decent quality cameras.
Yeah, quality was good.
Like the cinematography may be a bit one-dimensional, but yeah, like they had the budget, and then they had his wife was played by his real life wife.
Which he was super excited about when he introduced the movie.
Right. So at the very, very beginning, before you get to even the opening credits of the movie, he comes up, Kirk Cameron comes up on the screen and just says how awesome this movie is, how it's going to make your family so much stronger. It's just so awesome. Like, he loves this movie, and it was such a great opportunity for him to work with his wife and all this stuff.
He's super excited about it.
Yeah. It's like, okay, that's a weird way to start the movie.
Well, especially because if you watch the longer trailer, he has the exact same spiel.
Right.
And so it's definitely not something you're expecting
Right.
when you watch the movie.
Exactly.
It's like, wait, I thought we were watching the movie. Is this just a trailer? But no.
Yeah. And then it cuts into the opening credits, which was done in like a picture frame kind of thing.
Oh, it was awful.
It was just kind of annoying.
It was super annoying. It was
Because it made the
way
screen
too
so much
long.
smaller.
Yeah, it made
Yeah.
the screen smaller. The coloring was different. Like, they used a filter throughout almost the whole thing. It was just bad. It was so annoying.
Yeah.
I was worried most of the film was going to be like in that frame because it went on for so long.
Right.
Like, it's seriously like 3 or 4 minutes of the movie.
Right, but rather than doing the photo thing for most of the movie, they did other things, which
Right.
ended up being equally
They used
annoying.
the same filter quite often, though.
Yeah,
Really annoying.
yeah.
So
So
it looks
let's
pretty on normal photos, but not in a movie.
so let's go into some of the characters.
Okay.
So Kirk Cameron obviously is the main father, and he has a wife named Maddie, whose name I didn't actually pick up on until like the end of the movie.
Right. I still don't remember the... Did you pick up on the daughter's name?
No, I never got the daughter's name.
I'm not even sure they said it.
Yeah, and that's something that you mentioned
Yeah.
last night. Is like these are completely secondary characters. It's all about the father and
Yeah,
the son.
they did not
The
need the
female
daughter.
characters are they're not even important to the story.
The wife kind of played a bigger role, but the daughter was completely like you didn't need.
But it was all about being the supportive Christian wife,
Right.
helping the husband do the traditional Christian father figure kind of thing, where you're protecting, you're providing,
Right.
you're the sole. You're solely responsible for the well-being of the whole family.
Right.
All that
One
stuff.
thing that bothered me about that was how she never actually found out what the actual issue was.
Did he never tell her?
No, not in like
Not
the actual
specifically?
film. Like you don't see that. I don't know if he like off screen it's like supposed to happen, but he never like fully tells her what's going on.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Like he mentions.
All he says
the
is that
issues
he
at
might
work or
lose his
whatever, and-
like the livelihood that they have. That's basically all he says. And she's like, "Oh, it's just money."
Right.
Sorry, getting ahead of myself, but
So Kirk Cameron and his wife, and they have 2 kids. They have a girl that was about 14, 15 years old, whose name we don't know.
it might be B
B.
E-A,
Okay.
but they don't have her last name on there. That's weird.
And I wrote down a couple notes just on her. So she, very stereotypically picks on her little brother and just randomly narrates his life
It's like
for no reason.
yeah, she's like trying to be an announcer because he plays baseball, and so she's like
Right.
being a baseball announcer, but she narrates his entire life.
Right, in an effort
It's
to
weird.
kind of motivate him to practice harder or something along those lines.
Right.
And then there's the 12-year-old boy Cody, who wants to be a pitcher in his little league baseball team, but he's not quite good enough to be like the main pitcher, and so he ends up being in right field most of the time.
Which is an awful place for a baseball player.
Right, and he
Awful.
he just hates being out there. Like he loves baseball, but he hates his position. He's constantly trying to get his coach to let him pitch and all that stuff.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know anything about baseball, right field is where you put the player that can't actually play, but you have to have on the team.
Yeah,
Because you never get the ball
yeah. And,
unless there's a left-handed hitter, and then sometimes you might touch the ball.
Yeah, but I mean, left-handed people are 10% of the population?
Yeah, they're pretty rare, and even then, it's really hard for them to get it over into right field for some reason. It's like it just
There's just something about right
yeah,
field.
it's just something about right field.
Yeah.
It's got like this force field around it.
Yeah. So Cody wants to be a pitcher. He practices constantly, and the coach won't let him get the position that he wants. And then he finally gets an opportunity to pitch, and he blows it. And this becomes a metaphor for his dad, Kirk, with his job that's going on. And that's something that they do throughout the movie is all of the baseball stuff with the son is supposed to parallel what's going on with the dad.
Yeah.
It's all about the father and the son.
There's a lot of cuts in between. Yeah.
Yeah, tons of montages.
It's really bad. Way too many montages, way too many cuts, way too many close-ups, way too many close-ups.
I didn't pick up on the close-ups.
Oh my gosh. That whole scene between him and the lobbyist, all close-ups.
Oh yeah. So let's get into that.
It's bad.
So Kirk, what is his real name?
In the movie, it's John
right.
Miller.
John Miller. Okay. I just wrote him down as Kirk in my notes because that's how I
It's a
identify
pretty
him.
generic name.
Yeah.
We're the Millers,
Yeah. Right.
which
And
is a movie, isn't it?
I have no idea.
Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah. So he works at a scrapyard
Yeah.
called Dante.
A pretty clean scrapyard, if you ask me.
Right. And and like I had a good friend, a neighbor friend growing up. We lived next door to them from when I was probably 6 till I think I was about 12 or 13 when they moved away. So pretty formative years or whatever. And his dad worked at a junkyard, and we would go there sometimes, and it was just dirty.
Yeah.
Like it's junk.
It's junk.
And this place is pretty clean.
Right.
And
And the scrapyard is also a metaphor.
Yeah. Everything in here is a metaphor for Kirk Cameron trying to realize what's really important in life.
Right.
Anyway, so he works at this scrapyard. He's the owner. His father and his uncle created the business 60 years ago. It's very blue-collar, grassroots kind of stuff. And now he and his brother, what's his brother's name? Ben. Like they run the scrapyard now.
They're co-owners.
Co-owners, yeah. And it's not even like a recycling plant. It's just a place where they collect like scrap metal and plastics and that sort of thing, and then sort it so that it can go to a recycling facility or go to the dump or whatever.
Right.
So it's like this in-between business, intermediary. Anyway, so at the beginning, they have this guy who's very clean-cut, very nicely dressed, and he presents himself as a photojournalist or whatever, or just a journalist. He has a cameraman that follows him around, and he's basically coming in to do an interview to find out incriminating information about Kirk Cameron's father's death, and trying to implicate Kirk Cameron and as like somehow being responsible. They never get into the specifics of what happened.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily about his father's death. He just brings that up because he knows it's going to rub him the wrong way.
But the main point, the main point that this journalist is getting at is that he's not actually a journalist, as Kirk's character comes to find out. He's actually an eco-lobbyist.
Yes.
Okay.
Slimy bastard.
Exactly, and so it becomes this fight between the what is it, the grassroots America, Americana,
corporate America
versus corporate America, and all the liberals, and they're trying to control small town rural America, the communities, through like laws and legislation, and trying to take over their businesses, which is what this eco-lobbyist wants to do. He wants to become the majority shareholder of Kirk's business, so that he can own it, and then I guess buy it out and just have his own company that's better or bigger or whatever.
Yeah,
they don't get into specifics of it.
Right.
But that's
they're just implying that he's a money grubber.
Right, and he's slimy, and he's this dirty liberal that's using liberalism to control people. So that's where it's surprising to me, because we went into it thinking that it was going to have all this religious stuff,
right?
But instead, it's political.
As political as they can get, I guess.
Right, but it's all about conservatives versus the good conservatives versus
the liberals,
the very bad, evil liberals. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they definitely hired a stereotypical person to fill that role of the lobbyist. Dark hair, slicked back.
Right.
Super clean cut. Always walks in slow motion.
Oh, there's so much slow motion.
Puts on his glasses, and
Yeah, there's so much slow motion in this movie.
It's way too much.
Anytime that they want to make something suspenseful,
they do it in slow motion.
They do it in slow motion.
And they try and make half the movie suspenseful.
Right, and because, as you know, slow-mo equals suspense.
Yeah. Only because it takes forever to get to the point.
Right. At the very end, when they have that the big baseball game or whatever, which of course is the big metaphor for the big court case that comes at the end.
Although they don't really match.
But it was what, 4 or 5 minutes of slow-mo?
Seriously. And it was after they had won. It was them celebrating.
It just dragged.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It was so annoying.
It was really annoying.
It's like it's fine to do like slow-mo for like, say, the winning catch or the winning hit.
The winning catch, or like the decision that he has to make.
Right. But to drag out the entire
act.
Like the whole thing just in slow-mo?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That doesn't make it a good action sequence.
No.
Anyway, so the interview at the beginning starts, of course, with loaded questions. We kind of went over that. And it's this dichotomy between rural America versus urban America, conservatives versus liberals, and all that stuff. And it's all about a sort of villainizing environmentalism, which I don't really understand why they get so aggressively against environmentalism.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Maybe
it has something to do with global warming and them not believing in that.
Right, which doesn't make any sense to me. like probably 10, 15 years ago, I would have considered myself in that camp. Not seeing the evidence of global warming and not acknowledging certain things that were being said and all that kind of stuff. And it was still a fairly new thing, like politically and in the, public sphere.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, like ultimately it came down to the fact that all of these experts who really are studying it
Right.
are saying that this is what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
and they show the charts and stuff, which I'll admit I don't fully understand all of their arguments because I'm not an expert.
Right.
I haven't studied it.
Right.
But again, they are the experts,
Uh-huh.
and they have studied it, and they say that this is happening, and they have data to back it up. So then it becomes, okay, what do we do about it? Can we do anything about it? What is causing it? All that kind of stuff. And there's still a core group of fundamentalist Christians and like some Mormons would fall into that category as well, where they just won't take that first step of acknowledging that it's even happening.
Right.
You know.
Because God wouldn't let something like that happen. Or if it is happening, God wants it to happen and we shouldn't do anything to stop it.
Right.
Because
Which is an
it's
argument that
ushering
I've
in the
heard.
second coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I've heard that argument. There was that one video, I remember I showed it to you a while ago, like probably a year or two ago. I forget the name of the gentleman, but he was a congressman. He was like a state representative or something like that. And he was presenting in front of Congress his argument against global warming.
Yeah,
and
I
his
remember
argument was God promised after the flood that he wouldn't destroy the earth and all this stuff. It's like, you're one of the few people who can actually do real change in this country and has
Right.
real power in this country, and you think that God won't allow global warming because of the Great Flood
Right.
and Noah?
That you can't
really?
prove.
Right. Like you yeah. It's like good grief, like this is scary.
Yeah.
Like this is a person who legitimately, potentially has control over my life.
Right.
Like can enact legislation that affects me personally and people that I care about.
Right.
And he believes that global warming can't happen because of his religious beliefs, because of his faith. It's insane.
Yeah.
So there is that core Christian fundamentalism that won't allow even the possibility for environmental issues to be legitimate. It's scary.
Right.
So that comes up a lot in the first half of the movie, and
at the very end.
Yeah.
His whole speech is about that.
Yeah, at the very end he has that speech at the city council.
That doesn't really make sense, but anyway.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. So the big bad guy, I forget his name, Evan something.
Evan Trufant.
Right, yeah, which sounds kind of French. Maybe that's intentional, I don't know. Is Trufant French?
I don't know any French, but I think it's just supposed to sound upper class.
Okay, yeah.
He's a Miller, he's a Trufant.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's all about the grassroots versus liberal elite and all that. But so they have this second confrontation where Kirk's character confronts him about having an ulterior motive. He's not really a journalist. He's trying to seize power over his business and all that kind of stuff. And so it turns into this like showdown kind of thing. Like they're staring at each other. They're like Kirk's making all these accusations, and it makes they make it look like he's making really good points. And that he's got him figured out. He's got the bad guy figured out.
This is the second confrontation, right?
In his office, his very nice, clean office at a scrapyard.
Yeah, with a huge Mac computer. Did you see that?
I didn't
It
notice
was
it.
big.
But yeah, very nice office. Anyway, so during this meeting, the bad guy Evan pulls out all of these legal documents and shows through legal documentation that Kirk Cameron screwed himself.
Yeah.
And that
it has to do with hazardous materials. He's handling hazardous materials, and he doesn't have the right permits for it.
Right. And he can't afford to get the right permits for some reason.
Well, he signed a document that basically, I guess, implied that he was going to turn his business over to the government, and he didn't realize that. I think that's more or less what it was, and he can't afford not to do the permits.
It was about getting subsidies, and in order for him to get subsidies, he had to admit to handling hazardous materials. And, again, it's things like scrap metal and water bottles.
Everything that you recycle.
Right. Any of that stuff.
Any of it.
So he has to admit in writing that he has hazardous materials and whatever. And so he gets caught in this snare that he has to get permits or hand over majority shareholder to this creepy Evan guy. And Evan has all the legal documentation to do it. And so so this is like the big
and he's done this to other scrap metal people in the area.
Right. So Kirk knows that he's screwed. He knows that this is going to happen. It's inevitable. Blah blah blah. And so he has that big meltdown. He just for
kind of threatens
reason,
to hit him with a baseball bat.
Kind of, sort of, and ends up hitting his own desk instead.
Yeah.
But he has like that meltdown where he has that old antique car from his dad that looks like Walt Disney, and he, for some reason, decides that he's going to scrap this car. This is like an old Dodge Challenger or a old fastback Mustang or something like that. An old muscle car. They don't actually show you what it really is. It's always a side view where you can't quite get a good view of it.
They didn't have enough money for that.
They couldn't get the company to let them do it, which is what they do in all of the other scenes where they have
they even blur out license plates.
Yeah,
which I thought was really funny.
Yeah, they couldn't get permission from Hershey's or Dreyer's ice cream to let them show their product, so they had to turn all the cartons away from the camera while they have their sundaes, that kind of stuff. Anyway, so he explains later to his brother Ben that he scrapped the car, his dad's car, because he was trying to let go of times past and
he was sick of holding on to dead things.
Right. So that whole thing, and it's just well, sell the car.
That whole thing was weird.
Scrap it?
Yeah,
it was just absurd. But don't worry, the car is fine.
Yes, his brother saves it.
His brother saved it, and now he keeps it.
And rubs it in his face.
Right. What else we got? Do you have anything?
Well, I mean, you could start off with at the beginning of the movie how they're all this happy family or whatever. He comes home from work all happy and, plays with the kids right out in the front yard.
Family.
They have a playful fight with grapefruits. The mom is very obviously cooking dinner because she comes out with oven mitts on, and they sit down and they have family dinner together. And then as soon as the kid gets angry when he's playing baseball and the coach takes him out and he's pissed at home, and then John is going through this, he's trying to make calls or whatever, he makes angry phone calls trying to figure out this whole business issue that he's having, and dinners start falling apart, the boy disappears for a while, the guy goes back to work, and it's breaking the family apart almost immediately.
Right. Everything just unravels because this one thing happened.
Yeah.
One more thing that I did want to point out about the bad guy is that he's in every other scene in the first half of the movie.
Right.
He's a pivotal, important character of the first half of the movie. Does not show up once in the second half of the movie. I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
It made no sense to me.
After their second confrontation, you're right, he never shows back up.
He never shows up.
Right.
Yeah, he's just gone.
Yeah.
You do get one scene with the cameraman who they imply
had a son on the opposing team.
Right, but they imply that he has sympathy for Kirk's character, and kind of switches sides and that kind of thing. Grows a conscience,
right?
All that kind of thing. What else? We already talked about the montages. How most of them were split into two, they have two different events happening at the same time, and one's usually a metaphor for the other. Usually the baseball game is baseball game is the metaphor for Kirk's situation and all that kind of stuff. Lots of slow-mo.
They couldn't decide on one type of music to play in the whole movie.
Oh yeah, you wrote down the different types.
I wrote down most of them, yeah. Once I started realizing that we weren't getting the same type.
Right. So what do you got?
So I started keeping track towards the second half of the movie, and they have a song where it's a little bit not country, but a little indie,
sort of blues
with
rock.
Harmonicas. A harmonica featured heavily in the song, so they've got stuff like that.
Like Blues Traveler kind of thing.
Then they have what you call the distorted guitar. when they're like trying to make it a little more suspenseful, and you've got this crazy guitar thing going on in the back. They have a pop song that goes on when the family's all happy breakfast. And making breakfast together,
which I equated to One Direction, I think.
Yeah,
like it's that kind of poppy, like tween music.
Yeah, like happy, upbeat. Yeah. Then they have a dubstep song,
which totally caught me off guard.
Yeah, what was the scene?
Was it one of the
when
baseball
they're playing
scenes?
Baseball?
Yeah.
Oh, it's in the playoff game.
Right.
That's right. They have some rock that goes on, like rock loops, I think is what you said. They have a military march. They have like the heroic theme music. They have some like jazz lounge thing that happens. A happy-go-lucky groove song that goes on.
Right.
And then they have like this patriotic and / heroic theme that happens at the end when he's making his speech.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like they've never seen a movie before.
Yeah.
It's like a good movie has one type of music that goes through the whole thing. It's what ties the movie together.
Exactly.
That's a good soundtrack.
Right. They were trying to cover all the bases.
Yeah, this
rather
was
than tying it together.
all over the place.
Yeah.
It's like you can't appeal to everyone.
Unless you're doing something like, say, Forrest Gump, where you're going through different
time period. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like still basically
it's
the same
pop.
type. Yeah.
It's all pop culture.
Yeah, it's popular music. Exactly.
Yeah.
This was all over the board. It's just annoying.
Yeah.
It breaks the movie up. It doesn't flow very well. I mean, technically, this movie was not done very well. They've got like shaky cam in some scenes where they're like following the baseball players for some reason. We mentioned all of the slow motion that they do. Random cuts, like lots of cuts in between.
Just really hard to follow.
Yeah, it's really hard to follow. Like even like two people having a conversation, they have like cuts in between each of them. Even if it's only like a profile view, it's like they can't pan out a little bit further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and lots of the sports sequences were hard to follow as well.
Yeah.
Because like they wouldn't show, like there was that one scene where they had like the double play or the triple play or whatever, and the little boy Cody threw it to the second baseman from the first base.
Right, and you don't know exactly where he's throwing it.
Right, and they don't show the kid running from third base to second base, which shows you why he's throwing the ball.
Yeah.
So all you see is two kids on the same team throwing the ball back and forth to each other. You don't see what's going on around them, so you don't know why they're doing it.
Right. In my head, I was screaming, "Throw it home." Why are you going to second to throw it home?
Because they don't show you what else is going on.
No.
It's just kind of shoddy sports stuff.
Yeah. That was a pretty risky play, by the way.
Was it?
Yeah.
I don't know a ton
Got a
about
runner
baseball.
on third.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Let's see. So...
Oh, about the montages, though. They had a really long montage, like at the beginning when they first start playing baseball. Where they like try and convey how much time is going past, and like, so they've got like all these random clips of them playing baseball, and then they have this overlay of a calendar, just kind of like scrolling through while these giant red X's are going through all the days. Like it lasts again for like 3 or 4 minutes, and it's a terrible way to convey time has gone past.
Yeah.
Like, that's what people did in, like, the 40s and 50s. You marked off a calendar, and
show,
that's how you knew it was, like,
holiday.
a year later. Yeah. I mean, it was seriously, like, showing 4 months of time going past. It was...
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah. Let's see. So, the plot overall was pretty predictable. Once they got, like, everything set up.
Right.
You knew how it was going to end.
Right.
There wasn't nearly as much religious talk, overt religious talk, as I would have expected.
Right.
Considering Kirk Cameron, as we talked about before, is all about doing Christian movies, movies that promote Christianity. The movie is more about preserving grassroots Americana and taking political jabs at liberals and environmentalists and big government. There are a few comments about divine interventions helping the sun win baseball games.
Really?
Yes.
Where?
At the expense of players of the other team. Did you catch that?
No.
It was towards the end when Kirk announces that he's going to make it to the big game. He makes that comment that just pray that one of the guys on the other team hurts himself or whatever, and all that kind of stuff. It's like, is that really the message you want to be sending?
Right.
But it is actually.
That's like a baseball thing though too. I wouldn't attribute that solely to religion.
Well, here's the thing. So the movie comes with a study guide.
Are we done talking about the movie?
Not entirely.
Okay.
I just want to tie into it. So So we printed it off. We're going to get into specifics, but there is something that talks about that very thing, about other people getting hurt or having bad things happen to them so that you can do good things.
Oh, that makes sense, because at the beginning of the movie, when they're talking outside and the wife is like, how did we get so lucky? How did we get lucky enough to have this perfect life?
Yeah,
and,
like why us?
Yeah, why us? When so many other people have to suffer and have it bad.
Yeah, and they never talk about it. They never bring it up again.
Yeah, he ends the conversation by saying, you know what would make this really perfect? A cigarette.
Right.
Which is really funny. Because he doesn't smoke in real life.
No. Right,
but like he has this scene too where he when he's going through that rough patch and he's about to scrap his car and he's got the cigarettes, but he only pulls one out and he tucks it behind his ear,
right,
and then he throws the rest of the pack in the car and he's like, scrap it, and then he just carries it behind his ear.
Right.
It's like, he's trying to imply that he's a smoker, but he's not going to actually smoke it because Kirk Cameron could never do that.
Right. It actually reminds me of a conversation I had with my sister Melissa when the movie Singles Ward came out. So Singles Ward kind of lampoons Mormon culture, popular Mormon culture.
You should definitely watch it. It's funny.
Been a long time since I watched it. But there's one character in there that is like, this inactive Mormon that smokes cigarettes or whatever.
The main character.
Was it the main character?
The guy?
I'm remembering it being a girl, like a girl that was smoking. But again, it's been a while. The point is, there's a person in the movie that smokes. Okay, this is a Mormon movie that has a person smoking, and my sister and I were talking about whether or not they had a member of the church do it. Because presumably most of these people are Mormon. Actually,
I think the majority of them weren't.
Really?
Yeah, the Kirby guy that is in the RM is LDS. But I'm pretty sure the main guy is not LDS.
Okay.
He's in a few LDS movies, but I don't think he's actually LDS.
But the assumption that most Mormons make is that people
it's comprised of all
make
LDS
these movies
people.
are LDS people.
Yeah.
What was that one? Was it Mountain of the Lord with Joseph Smith? Do you remember that one?
Like a long time ago?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That one, I'm pretty sure...
Wilford Woodruff?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that... both Joseph Smith, the actors, both Joseph Smith and Wilford Woodruff, the presidents of the church, were played by non-Mormons.
Right. I think a lot of those movies were. It's only been recently when the church has been like, you have to be LDS.
Right, if they do something like in the temple.
Like whatever, Jesus in the Testaments had to be LDS.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so going back to the smoking thing, I had this conversation with my sister Melissa about whether or not they would have a member do it, and she was like, no, like they wouldn't possibly do it. I was like, well, like it's a movie, it's an art form. It's not like they're asking them to like do it regularly, and there are alternatives to tobacco. Like you can, like they do have like dummy cigarettes for movies and that kind of stuff that aren't actually made of tobacco, so you're not actually getting high, so you can do multiple takes and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And they do
but
the same
it's
thing
simulating
with other kinds
an
of
evil
drugs.
thing.
Right. And so, but it's just so ridiculous because it's just this fairly innocuous kind of thing. But Mormons associate it with sin because it's considered a sin.
Right. It's why, like, my mom, I'm sure your mom did the same thing. Like, they never wanted us to pretend the pretzels were cigarettes. Or, like, the candy cigarettes, we could never have those. Or
I got in trouble for having candy cigarettes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, anytime my mom caught us pretending we were smoking a pretzel, it was like, no, that's a bad thing to do. It's not a cigarette, but it's wrong.
You're going to love this. So, when I was in high school, we did a play in my stake. So wards are like local congregations, and then they have like 4 or 5 wards lumped together to make a stake. Okay, it's like a diocese kind of thing. And for my stake, we had the youth one year do Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. We did the play. Okay, and it was this big activity. It was supposed to take weeks of preparation and all this kind of stuff. It was big to do, and it turned out actually pretty well considering none of us are actors or anything like that. But they have this one scene where they're lamenting leaving the land of Canaan. They're in like this like French cafe style thing, right? And the song is like this dreary, mopey kind of melody. And we thought it would be really cool if I played the trumpet and like did like a bluesy trumpet solo with like a plunger and that kind of thing, because I was in the jazz band at the time at the high school. And so we wrote the part and like incorporated it into the song and like had this whole thing set up. Like I had my trumpet like hiding behind like one of their fake tables on set, and in order to prepare to play the song, I have to warm up, right? But I can't like warm up on the stage, so I have to warm up before I go on stage, and to keep my mouth warm and ready to play, I keep my mouthpiece in my hand and just kind of hold it up, make sure it's warm, and that kind of thing. And I thought that it would be appropriate, given that we were in a French cafe where we were supposed to be pretend drinking wine and whatever, that I just kind of held it like a cigarette. Okay. And the director flipped when I did this. Like, she got so upset and just like, no, we can't do that. Like, it's too much. It's too inappropriate. And so like I had to like keep it in my pocket or whatever. But it was just so funny. It's like, it's not like I was even doing it.
Right.
Like I was literally just holding it in my hand up to my mouth. Like that's all it was. Just my little mouthpiece.
That's funny. Should have been a little wine glass.
Yeah. Anyway, I feel like we
veered off topic a little bit. Yeah.
What were we talking about?
Some movie.
They still make movies?
Of course they do.
Okay, so let me look at my notes. So we talked about good things happening to good people at the expense of other people. Mm-hmm. And then, so there was the one scene where Cody at the end gets his big chance. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what happened right before he gets his big chance?
Which big chance? When the first time he pitches?
No, I think it was at the end, like before like the big play. Like he really wanted to play or whatever, and like the coach wasn't putting him in.
Yes.
Okay.
A player on his team gets hurt.
Exactly.
And that's why he gets to go in.
He gets his big chance because somebody else got hurt.
Right. On his team.
On his team. Which freed up a space for him to play.
Yeah.
Let's see. So the climax of the movie is when Kirk goes to the city council meeting and is allowed to speak for 15 minutes to present his case for why they shouldn't let the bad guy take his business.
Well, see, that's the thing. He's not talking about why the bad guy shouldn't take his business. He's talking about why the government shouldn't take his business.
Right.
The bad guy gets completely shoved out of the picture.
Right.
It's like if he can figure out the government side, then he won't have to sell the majority of his business to this other guy. But
right. So
they don't explain that.
They don't explain hardly anything.
No.
But the way that they make their point that the government is overreacting and making a big to-do about nothing was that they saw that
buffoonery.
They saw that one of the council members was drinking a bottle of water, and he
was about to take a drink.
And Kirk says, "Stop, sir, stop," and says, do you know that you're handling hazardous material? Because that's one of the things in their charter or whatever that says that plastic bottles are considered hazardous materials. And he signed the document saying that he implicitly acknowledges that it's hazardous materials, right? And so he, Kirk and his brother, do this big dramatic thing where they take the water bottle.
He puts a catcher's mask on.
Right. Where they take the water bottle with all of this equipment, this baseball equipment.
Yeah.
And make it look like it's this hazmat suit and all that kind of stuff, like they're handling really hazardous material, to show how ridiculous the government regulations are.
Yep.
And then he has that heartfelt speech that says, "You guys can keep coming at me, and I'll keep fighting you, and you'll probably win, but you'll suck as human beings."
Yeah, he literally says, "But you'll suck at being human beings."
Yeah, right. And this is how he wins over the council.
No,
they imply. He at least
they don't.
had that
no,
one
they
lady.
don't even imply that because she's like, "Now would be a good time for you to drop the microphone." They're a little bit pissed off because he's being super disrespectful.
No. She was the one that gave him the
15 minutes.
The 15 minutes.
Yeah, but at the end,
the whole dropping the mic thing, that stems from those rap battles from 10, 15
the way
years ago.
he dropped it, but that's not what she was implying.
I gathered that she was on his side.
No,
that's
I
how
didn't know.
That's how it looked like to me.
No, the tone of her voice, she was not on his side. Now would be a good time for you to drop the microphone, Mr. Miller.
I thought that she was agreeing with him.
Nope. I 100% don't think she was agreeing with him.
But that's the other thing is like I got one thing out of it, you got another thing out of it, but they never actually say what happened.
That's true.
You know,
he drops the microphone.
He drops the microphone and walks away, and then they have their big hoorah or whatever. Yeah. But they don't say in any way whether or not anything has been resolved.
Right. Like, the very last scene is him grilling up some steaks and celebrating his daughter's birthday on, like, the same day.
Yeah, it made no sense.
Weird. It's like, for a man that's probably going to lose his job, he's being pretty liberal with his money.
Yeah. It's just kind of an absurd way to end the movie.
Yeah. Especially because what really bothers me is that, like, he thinks that he's being... Like, Kirk Cameron and John Miller as the character, you know, they think that they're, like, proving a point, that it's the government or, like, these councilmen that are being, like, disrespectful or aren't taking their needs into consideration. But it's really the complete opposite. Like, his whole speech was disrespectful. It was buffoonery. Like, he's making a fool of himself, but he thinks that he's making a valid point.
Right. Which, in a way, is its own metaphor for Christianity.
Right, but it's not the metaphor they were going for. I don't know, that whole scene just bugged me because he's an idiot.
Yeah.
He's not making the point he thinks he's making.
Right, he's appealing to emotion and trying to undo the legal damage that he did to his own business.
Right.
By just saying, come on, guys.
Yeah, like
don't be
I think it would be more compelling if it was like, I made some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I can't lose this business.
Didn't understand what I was
Can we
signing.
work something out?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was just,
Anyway, so any other notes about the movie itself?
Let's see. I think one of the scenes that they tried to make pretty pivotal was when he and his wife are in that restaurant.
When he's trying to tell her how he screwed up everything.
Right.
But he never actually says.
Never actually says exactly what. Yeah, just that he's not cheating. But like, he's.
Yeah.
So he's trying to say that he screwed everything up. She kind of jokingly asks, "Oh, who is she?" And he says, "No, that's not what I mean." It's like he says like the business basically is in trouble. I made some bad decisions, and we could be losing lots of money. We could be losing everything.
Right.
And she says, it's only money. And he like says something about how his dad built it up from the ground, like that he would be losing his father's legacy. He doesn't say from nothing. Well, she says that. Nothing, yeah. Right. But he says, I'm losing my father's legacy, and she's like, and this is what I think was what the point of the whole movie basically is, especially from Kirk Cameron's opening scene. Right. It's like, you are your father's legacy. This is just a thing. Mm-hmm. Family is the legacy. Family is the important thing. Like, your children are your legacy, like you were your father's legacy. And I think, but I don't think they made that point very strong.
That's the only time any point strong.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. They think they're making really strong points, but they brush over them really fast. Like, they concentrated way too much on the montage, way too much on slow motion, way too much on changing the filters at random intervals in the movie.
Right.
There's just way too much going on that didn't lend itself to the story.
It was just bad storytelling.
Yeah, it was really bad storytelling. And the voiceover, the kid's voiceover, you don't need that. You don't need a voiceover to tell the story, but they did because the writing wasn't strong enough for it.
Right.
Which is why the daughter was there.
Whose name we still don't know.
Yeah, I think it's B, but...
Okay, so... let's get into the study guide.
Okay.
That they've presented. Unless you have something else to add.
No.
Okay.
I've said mostly what I wanted to say.
Cool. So this is a study guide that's available online if you just Google...
This study guide is the reason we decided to do the movie.
Right.
Because it had a study guide.
Right, which just sounded like it was going to be just...
Tons of fun.
Right.
And it's only like six pages.
I think. Yeah. Well,
I think it's 6 pages with the first page.
The first page is just a big picture.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you can Google it. Just Google study guide for Mercy Rule, and you'll find it. So they have like 10 different points where they basically just take quotes from the movie and then ask you a question about it and then give you like a 1-paragraph answer, a correct answer for whatever the question is. So one person that we didn't talk about a whole lot was the grandfather, who they call Pops.
Pops.
Okay.
The boy talks about Pops a lot in the voiceover.
Right, who he met like once. Yeah.
Not very much.
So the first one is a quote from Pops. It says, "Winning is not as important as fighting on the right side."
Yep.
Now, on the surface, that, of course, sounds like sage advice. Like, it's better to be doing the right thing than necessarily getting, what you want or whatever. So the question that they ask, what do you think Pops meant when he said this? And then,
is this when they get religious? You should fight on the Christian side.
Right. So they also ask another question. Why is it more important to fight on the right side than it is to win? Which, fine questions. It's all about, morals.
Isn't that the same
stuff.
question, just rephrased?
So here's their response. An evil person can win a fight, but he is still evil.
Oh my gosh.
And in the end, God will ensure that evil people always lose. The most important thing is to be fighting on the right side, choosing to fight for a noble cause alongside our countrymen, our brothers and sisters, or our teammates is even more important than winning, making the most money, or scoring the most points. Pops went headfirst into danger for the sake of freedom. Wasn't he in one of the wars?
Yeah, he's supposed to have fought in World War II.
Yeah.
On D-Day.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he would have been old enough, though. I feel like, because Kirk Cameron is about my parents' age. And my grandpa is in his 70s. And he was born in 42. Like, he would have had to have been born in, like, the 20s.
Yeah, which is when my grandpa was born.
But your grandpa...
But he was in World War II.
Right, but your parents are a lot older than mine.
Right.
I just feel like the time didn't match up so much.
That's a good point. It would make more sense if it was his grandpa.
Yeah, or if it was like Korea or Vietnam.
But there's not that nice, clean, good versus evil, situation that we have with World War II, which is why we have so many movies and video games about World War II, because there's a clear bad guy.
There's a clear bad guy.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Goes on, let's see. John risks everything for the sake of fighting back against an immoral politician. So an immoral politician. They don't say how he's immoral. He's just a jerk.
Because he's trying to steal money.
Because he's a jerk.
And they're trying to steal money.
And he's a jerk.
Real quick with the whole evil thing, like evil people can win fights. Do you remember the scene with Cody and his sister? After he has his first opportunity to pitch, he blows it, and then his friend goes in and pitches a 3 up, 3 down. And she asks him, like, you are happy for him, right? Because if you weren't happy for him, that would make you evil.
Yeah.
And we both just kind of laugh because it's kind of a harsh thing, like not wanting to be happy for someone. It doesn't make you an evil person.
Right.
I'm sorry, that just reminded me of that scene.
Okay, so there's just 2 more sentences for this one. Cody, the little boy, chooses to work with his team for victory instead of for his own glory, which is what you just talked about. Which
is funny because he still gets the glory in the end.
He does. But that's what God promises. Except that God gets all the glory.
Right.
And life is about fighting out the right side and pouring everything you have into the fight. Okay. So that was like pretty overtly religious.
Right.
Way more overt religious than
the movie itself.
The movie, right. Okay, the next one. There's categories for these. So the first one is called choosing sides. Okay. The second section is taking responsibility. And we have another quote from Pops. You got a problem with someone? Doesn't matter who you are, you man up and go eye to eye.
And this is when Cody goes and confronts his coach.
Right. So the question is, why is it important to not let conflicts go unresolved? Why is it important to resolve things immediately and be at peace with all men as much as possible?
Wait, that's a question?
That was a question.
Oh.
I wanted to read it again.
Yeah, I kind of zoned out, I think.
So why is it important to not let conflicts go unresolved? Why is it important to resolve things immediately and be at peace with all men as much as possible?
I don't know.
Okay, so here's their answer. One of the most important things to learn in life is how to take responsibility to resolve conflict. Wise and mature people make the first move, speak up, apologize, and reconcile with others as much as possible.
I think wise people know when to make a move, not
Right.
necessarily have to make the first move.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like when I have conflicts with people at work, because I work at a treatment
Right.
center. So like sometimes I have conflicts with the patients because they're unstable and they're emotional and all that kind of stuff. It's not about me making an apology first.
No.
In fact, I very rarely make apologies.
Right.
Because that's not even usually the point. The point is usually helping them manage their emotions. So
Figuring
that they
out
can,
why they're freaking out.
Right, and help them manage it in an appropriate way. It's not even about the apology.
Right.
You know. But this is like, I don't know, it's the idea that you have to apologize first, that doesn't necessarily make you right. It doesn't make you better. You know, like it may be.
I guess it kind of
good.
correlates with the idea of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Like it's humbling yourself and opening yourself up to God's direction or whatever. But
yeah, but the whole Christian idea of what forgiveness is kind of weird to me, because it's about completely forgiving somebody to the point where you essentially forget, like forgive and forget.
You're supposed to forget it. Yeah.
Right, but that's not good advice. Like
No.
like there are people in my life who have done some terrible things, and I may at some point come to the point where I forgive them, quote unquote, and just kind of put everything behind me, but in no way do I forgive them in the sense that I trust them,
Right.
or that I would
Yeah.
let them do that thing to me again.
Yeah. Trust
You
is
know.
the big thing that they're missing in the whole idea of forgiveness.
Right, and they don't even talk about it. Let's see. They go on. It says, if we allow conflict and arguments to go unresolved, they will fester and only get worse. There is some truth to that.
Yeah, there
I
is some
suppose.
truth to that.
Let's
It
see.
depends on the type of argument.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just goes away on its own.
While some people never take responsibility, Cody takes Pop's counsel and goes to Coach's house.
That's his name in the movie. Coach.
They don't say his
I
real
don't think
name?
he has a real name in the movie.
Oh, okay. He goes to Coach's house to settle the conflict, quote, eye to eye. Near the end of the movie, we see John following the same advice with the city council. So again, everything's a metaphor.
Right. And just the coach is crazy.
Yeah.
He like has this one scene in his house where he like starts freaking out because he's thinking of all the parents that keep calling him to tell him that their kid deserves to play, and then his daughter that doesn't need to be in the movie like has to calm him down, like breathe in and out.
Think
in
about
and
your
out.
techno music.
And then she starts singing the techno music, and he's like, "Oh yeah," it's a weird scene.
Well, he's like an old MMA fighter from Holland,
Oh, yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, because he has a weird accent.
Yeah.
Because it's not weird, it's just, there are times when it's like, is there an accent?
I don't think he would have bothered me so much if they had written his character a little bit differently.
If he wasn't so high-strung in a few of those scenes. Because,
Right.
like, in the coaching
he was
scenes,
charismatic
he's
and
charismatic, and
entertaining in a way.
Yeah, and he was he wasn't, like, hilarious, but he had a few, like...
He had a quirkiness about him.
Yeah, he had a quirkiness about him, and it was a good coach kind of vibe. And he did actually have a couple of good quotes, I think, too. He had a couple of good lines that could have been in, like, any, like, Little League sports movie, I feel like.
But the way that they wrote the character just kind of made him a little obnoxious.
Yeah.
You know, especially when he was when he would get excited during the baseball games and just
all his sunflower scenes would like fly out of his mouth.
Seeds.
Yeah.
In slow-mo.
Yeah.
In slow-mo.
In slow-mo.
Yes.
Every time.
Every time. Okay, so the next section is fighting envy. And we have a quote from Coach. You should always want the best guy out there, even if it isn't you. So what point was Coach making to Cody? What poor character trait was Cody demonstrating?
Well, Cody believed that he was the best player out there, and he was the only one that could save the game.
Yeah. He was being selfish.
Yes.
Yeah.
And vain.
So their answer, Cody is envious of Jeff. Is that the name of the little boy? The other, his friend.
But that scene is before Jeff pitches.
So Jeff must be the other pitcher, the main pitcher.
No, because that whole scene is about him throwing the ball when the catcher wasn't in position. Jeff doesn't come in until later, because Cody has to sit out for a while. Jeff is his friend.
His friend. Okay.
Yeah, the one with all the freckles.
Okay. So
I don't know who the main pitcher is.
Okay. So Cody is envious of Jeff because of Jeff's ability to pitch. Cody would rather have his best friend fail than let
Which makes him evil.
That let someone else be in the spotlight.
Right.
This kind of thinking can only be fixed by selflessness and gratitude. By being thankful for his teammates and wanting the best for the team rather than himself, Cody's attitude toward Jeff was transformed.
His whole attitude towards the entire team was transformed.
Right. So here's a fun question for you. What if Kirk Cameron's character is not the best person to be in charge of the scrapyard? What if Evan is the best person to be in charge of the scrapyard?
Well, I would still say Kirk Cameron would be best in the scrapyard.
Yeah.
He has a vested interest in it. Evan does not.
Yeah. I don't know. Next section is defining everything. So this is going to the conversation in the restaurant between John and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
So John says, "Maddie, I ruined everything."
Mm-hmm.
She says, "What's her name?"
Mm-hmm.
John says, "What?" Maddie says, "What's her name?" "No, Maddie, stop it, no." So
that's not what I meant at all.
So not everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how are John and Maddie thinking about everything in two different ways?
He's thinking of everything in a worldly fashion. She's thinking of everything in not a worldly fashion. Family is everything. Money is not.
Right.
Which is fine to a certain extent. But in this world, you need money.
Right. Yeah, and the way that they approach this is all about traditional family values and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So their answer to the question is, John assumes that everything is his wealth and livelihood. Maddie corrects this by telling him that his marriage and his kids are everything. Our faith in God and our families is what truly matters most.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they don't actually say anything about faith in God being what matters most. It's all about
not
family.
In the movie, yeah.
Not in the movie, yeah. Money may come and go, but maintaining and working at healthy family relationships will always pay off. When our values are correctly ordered, we are freed, as John was, from the despair of losing things.
Which is really funny, because, like, if they really wanted to convey that message, they should have put them in a more, in a smaller home with not so many updated appliances. Like, not this huge yard, not a pool in the back.
Oh, yeah,
they wouldn't have that nice office. Like, everything would have been toned down. Like,
antique cars.
Yeah, they would have been more middle class. They were definitely upper middle class, and he works at a scrapyard.
Yeah. Yeah, they could have made it seem more of a dire situation.
Yeah, like they have Sundays, they go out to eat a lot, they barbecue steaks.
Make it seem like if they lose this, they're going to be destitute.
Yeah.
But that's not how it's presented. It's if they lose their business, they might have to downgrade their house.
Yeah. Or
get a different job.
Yeah. They can't wear new clothes every day.
Right.
Have you ever noticed that? I noticed that in like lower, not necessarily lower budget films, but like B films, especially like these religious films that we've started watching. They are always in new clothes. They never try and make them look like worn out or anything. Like his shoes, always a new pair of shoes. No scuff marks on them.
Yeah, which if you worked in a scrapyard
would be dirty.
Right.
They kind of try and make him look dirty when he that day when he like feels like he's quitting everything, but
right. Okay, which ties in nicely to the next section. Quitting whining.
Yeah, Cody is supposed to be the whiner of the team.
Yeah. So, okay, here we go. It's a conversation between Cody and B. You were right.
I was right.
But they spell it B-E-A.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's weird. On IMDb, I looked that up, and they have John Miller, listed, Maddie Miller, Cody Miller, but they only have B. Like, they don't put B. Miller. It's only the first name.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Okay, so, let's see. So Cody says, I think I should just quit.
Yeah.
And B answers, quitter, the most important position in every team. Cody Miller has really excelled as the quitter, Bob. Just doing her announcer voice thing, right? So much better than he was as the whiner.
Which is weird, because, like, he wasn't a whiner to me, necessarily. Like, he didn't necessarily whine about things. He was just asking, can I pitch? Can I pitch? Can I pitch today? How about now? Can I pitch now? Like, he really
Another
wanted to play.
montage.
Yeah. Yeah, that was another montage.
Yeah, of him asking his coach if he could pitch.
And you can tell it was all done in the same, 2 hours.
Right, because the coach is in exactly the same position.
Every time.
All he did was move his hat a little bit.
Maybe shift the sunflower seeds in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're always in the same dugout.
Yep. Okay, so the question is, only one question. B makes a very important connection between Cody's whining and his desire to quit. How are these two things connected?
The mentality of a loser. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do they say?
They say Cody is busy feeling sorry for himself, and B steps in to straighten him out.
Okay. Right.
She tells him, in a way that only B can, they add that in parentheses, that quitting comes from the same place as whining. They are two heads of the same dragon, selfishness. Ironically, while Cody wants everyone to admire him as a great player, he hasn't figured out that selfishness has never been admired. It is not until Cody takes his focus off of himself and places it on his teammates that his whining stops, he forgets about quitting, and his joy is restored.
Mm-hmm. By him sitting out almost the entire season.
Right, and then having the winning play at the end.
Yeah. Triple play, no less. He's involved in all three.
Yes. Which can only happen, I suppose, in a Little League game.
Right. No. Triple play would not happen in a Little League game.
No, I mean, only in a Little League game could a single person be involved in every part of the triple play.
The triple play would never happen in a Little League game.
Okay.
Especially for 12-year-olds.
Okay.
You have to be like a high competition team to even get a double play.
Okay. Okay, so the next section is building legacies, which we talked about a little bit. Looks like this is going back to the same conversation in the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
John says, I'm talking about losing everything my father built. And Maddie says, no, you are what your father built. Mm-hmm. You, the husband and the father you are. B and Cody are your father's legacy, not some place where you smash metal. What is the most important thing that we can build?
Our families.
Our families.
The relationships with our families.
John says, oh wait, I totally misread that. Let me start that paragraph again. John was still in the process of discovering what truly matters. He was thinking of Pop's legacy in terms of business and money, when in fact Pop's true legacy was his family. The most important thing we can build is a legacy of toughness, faith, and cussedness.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to figure out what cussedness means.
I don't know.
I'm going to Google that real quick.
Okay. I'm going to keep
because
reading.
That's bothering me. I don't think it's a real word.
It probably isn't. Let's see. So a legacy of toughness, faith, and cussedness.
How is cussedness spelled? Is it 2 Ds or 2 S's?
It's Cussedness. So toughness, faith, and cussedness to pass down to our kids. That is what Pops did for his kids and grandkids, and what we should do for ours. So again, it's just bolstering the whole traditional family thing, and applying particular values, in this case faith, which they still don't really approach directly in the movie very much.
Okay, let me.
Did you find it?
So well, according to dictionary.com, so I typed in cussedness and it brought up cussed.
Okay.
Or cussed, and the definition, the first one is cursed, the second one is obstinate, stubborn, and perverse. I mean, the examples that they use, like in sentences, have the word cussedness, so I'm not sure that they think it means what they think.
So
what it means what I think it means.
So they're trying to say that it's like being stalwart and steadfast and
right.
Sticking to your guns, that kind of thing, sticking to your values, when in fact it's more just plain stubbornness. And,
yeah, it's being stubborn.
Yeah, which seems appropriate.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's what all these examples kind of infer, that it's just something being really stubborn. So, that's fun.
Okay, so anything to add about that? Building legacies.
Cussedness is a real word.
There you go. There's the trivia for the day. Okay, so that's another...
I kind of
slight reference.
So while I was reading that, will you read the last bit of that? Or actually, let me read it real quick. I don't want you to read it again. Never mind, it doesn't matter. Keep going. Sorry. I don't want to drag this out any longer.
Okay, we're getting close to the end, I think. Anyway, so the next section is Finding Courage. We have a couple of quotes. Looks like they're both from Cody. Pops said some boys were so scared they couldn't even move when the doors opened to let the soldiers pour out.
It's talking about D-Day.
D-Day, yeah. The guns up on the cliffs, the shells, the hissing bullets, too fast to see. They just froze, and that's what killed them.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Saving Private Ryan, that's not what just killed them.
No, that's what killed, like, 2 of them.
It's like, even the ones that got right out of the ship got mowed down.
Yeah.
You're pretty lucky if you made that out alive.
Yeah, that's a crazy situation.
Yeah.
Second quote. You ever been in a fight you shouldn't win? Faced a bully too big and too strong? Know what it feels like to just want to shut your eyes? I do now.
Yeah, and he's referring to the big playoff game with the team that hasn't lost any games.
Right, it's just kind of grandiose.
Yeah.
He's just totally bolstering his achievement.
Yeah, they're not equal situations.
Yeah. So the question they ask is, everyone will face an enemy or opponent that is bigger, stronger, or smarter than him or her.
Oh, are they talking about Satan?
Probably. What are we supposed to do in the face of all that?
Pray to God.
Probably. Their answer, Cody takes the field, he gets off the boat, quote unquote. Even though he is scared, he is exercising true courage. True courage acknowledges the scariness of a conflict and moves forward to confront it. Cody learned this attribute from Pops and his father. In the movie, John is moving forward into a scary conflict at the same time as Cody, because again, everything's a metaphor. Cody is facing a much bigger and stronger team, while John is facing a much bigger and stronger corrupt government agency, environmentalists. It was more important than ever to be fighting on the right side. So again,
it's interesting that this is the first time Cody's team is confronting this team because they're in the same league and they're suddenly in the playoffs together, but they haven't played each other yet. That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen?
No.
Okay.
I mean, how else are you going to properly rank people if you don't, like, play every team? Mm-hmm. You play every team and then you move into the playoffs.
Okay. So we have a couple more. Let's see. So the next one is working free. So this is a conversation between the eco-lobbyist bad guy. That's actually what they write. It says right there.
Eco-lobbyist. In
parentheses, bad guy. And Ben. Ben is the brother. Let's see. So how much of your spending... So this is the eco-lobbyist talking. How much of your spending... Take 2.
This is take 3.
How much of your operating budget comes from subsidies, state, local, federal? Ben says...
Oh, yes. I wrote this
0,
one down too.
Zip, zippity, nada. We make our own way, like God and George Washington intended.
Yep. I think that's the only time they say God in the whole thing.
Yeah, I think so. The other stuff is the one reference to faith and then the one reference to divine intervention.
Right. But they're super subtle.
Right. How is Ben's thinking about the way to run a business different from how many other people think about the government's, quote, help?
What's the difference between the two?
Right, so basically what they're asking is, Ben's point is people shouldn't be seeking handouts, right, which is a common criticism from Republicans for Democrats who want to have like welfare programs and stuff like that to help people. Republicans don't want to do that because they think that everybody is born equal because that's what it says, in the Constitution or whatever. When in fact they're not born equal, they are born with the same rights. They are not born in the same circumstances, and because of that, some people genuinely do have setbacks. They have different things that are holding them back, preventing them from succeeding in the same kinds of ways as other people. Like like Ben and Kirk, and they come from middle class white America. Like that's a pretty privileged.
They own a business.
Yeah, that's a pretty privileged position to be born into. So it's no wonder that they have no real need for welfare programs and stuff like that, and handouts. The way that they see it, handouts. But it's completely unfair to say that other people don't genuinely need some kind of help.
Right.
And they're equating these subsidies from the state or from the government as the same thing as these people receiving help through welfare programs and stuff. That's how they view it.
Do they have the same feelings about loans? Or are they okay with loans?
You would think that would be the case, but that's not the case. Because
you have to pay it back.
That's probably the difference.
Okay.
Is that you have to pay it back. But still, that's a kind of aid.
Yeah.
So their answer is, many people today have been taught that they are entitled to free money and deserve government handouts at every turn. Pops came to America as an immigrant without a penny to his name. He built Dante scrapyards. Have we talked about Dante yet?
No, we haven't talked about the name.
Right, so it's clearly a reference to Dante's Inferno.
Which is weird.
Because isn't that about
it's
hell?
Descent into hell.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I kept thinking about that during the movie. It's like, this got to be a metaphor for something.
Right. That's all I could think about, too, it was supposed to be Dante's Inferno.
But it didn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't link at all into the show.
Yeah.
Unless they're thinking that, this is John's descent into, some kind of earthly hell, where he has to fight the government and then he has to rise above it, but... I mean,
still
that would it should be called the Divine Comedy then, if if he's talking about rising above something, because Inferno is only about being in hell.
Right. Okay, so Pops built Dante scrapyards from scratch and passed it on to his boys. With a work ethic that mirrored their dad's, the boys worked hard and earned their own keep. They never expected or asked for anything from the government. They built something that brought industry and prosperity to their family and their city. God made men free to pursue honest, hard work, and the Founding Fathers formed a government to protect these rights. So, pretty much everything that we just talked about. Okay.
I have a hard time with the concept of them being able to make their own way, because it was their dad's business. They're not making their own way. They had help from their dad. I don't know. It's not like if they broke off and made their own business, you could say they were making their own way.
Right. And who's to say that, if he loses the scrapyard business, he wouldn't be able to make his own way doing something better.
Well, that's kind of what his wife implies too.
Yeah.
That's where the scrapyard metaphor comes in.
Okay.
It's like, even if we lose everything and we get chewed and spit out, what do we get spit out as? What do you make it your scrapyard? Something more beautiful than what went into the crusher.
Right, because again, everything's a metaphor.
Everything, yeah, seriously. The scrapyard is a metaphor, and the baseball field is a metaphor.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one is laughing loudest.
That was a weird quote. That wasn't the whole thing.
No, I'm about to say the quote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's just what the section is called, laughing loudest.
Okay.
So Pops said, "First in, last out, laugh loudest." The question is, this seems to summarize Pops's approach to life. What do you think these three phrases mean?
Well, I assume first in, first out is kind of in reference to work ethic. You put in a lot of time and you work hard. That's pretty common. I was the first in, first out. It implies lots of hard work. But laughs loudest, it just seems like a weird thing to put in with first in, first out.
Okay, so here's how they break it down into three sections. So the three phrases, I guess. Okay. This motto shows us three ingredients to living life to its fullest. 1. First in means we must take initiative. We shouldn't sit back and wait until everything is safe and easy.
So take the plunge.
Okay, right. 2, to live life fully, we must persevere to the end. We can't do things halfway or abandon our plans. when they are only partly accomplished. We should finish strong.
Okay, so they went a completely different direction, kind of.
3, to live life fully, we must find our joy in something deeper than circumstance. We cannot rise and fall on every frustration and disappointment. A life fully lived is a life that is poured out and spent for others with determination in our hearts and laughter on our lips. So, yeah, that's not exactly how it comes across when I say it.
No, it's not. Well, especially because first in, last out is a fairly well-known phrase. And it's usually in reference to work ethic.
Right, like leadership and that kind of thing. Yeah. Anyway.
Which, I mean, it kind of ties into what they said, but... Okay. I didn't like that quote.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. Okay, the next one is exalting others. This is a quote from Coach. A good player is like a good brother.
I like this quote, too.
He's got your back when you screw up. He's out there making everyone around him better, saving butts, covering for mistakes, coming through when every other kid in a matching lid is depending on him.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to be a good teammate?
That whole quote was about that. It's not about you.
Right. It's about supporting people.
It's about supporting people.
Their answer, Cody thought that if he was the most talented or skilled person on the field, it meant he was the best player out there. He had the strength to make the throw to home, so he made the throw, even though no one was there to catch it. Mm-hmm. Remember the scene where he throws to home, but the catcher isn't there, and that's why the
catcher's staring dumbly out over to third base.
Right, not paying attention.
Yeah, he's like 3 feet away from the base.
Right, which he did again at the last play, the very last play, the big one. So he does that twice. Apparently, their catcher is not very good.
No.
Okay. He was only concerned about himself and his individual talent and reputation. Coach explained to him that being a good player is tied to making your teammates look good. Elevating everyone on the field to a higher level requires that our glory must take a back seat to the good of the team. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is just white bread to me. Like, this isn't really much of a point.
I mean, I really like his quote. He had a couple of good quotes in the scene with him and Cody in his house that, like I said, could have been in like a sports movie. It could have been in a legitimate movie. And he does make a good point with those. Like, I think he had some of the best quotes in the whole movie.
Yeah. That
had real world application.
Okay, so that one didn't really have anything to do with anything else in the movie.
No.
not about religion, not about politics. Just, be a good teammate.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, Cody's glory, quote unquote, does take a back seat because the coach keeps him benched for like the entire season until he randomly decides, okay, you can go pitch now.
Right.
Gives him one opportunity, one batter, or two batter. Was it 2 batters?
I think it was just the one.
It was just the one. It was one batter.
And
then he failed and goes out to right field again and then doesn't play until the playoffs.
Yep.
Okay, where he gets all his glory.
So this is the last one.
Okay, good.
Learning dependence.
Yeah, I have a hard time with this already.
So this is from Cody. My dad, trying to be strong enough to hold our whole world up by himself, learning that he can't. So the question is, if John is unable to hold the whole world up by himself, what is he learning to do?
Work with other people, delegate, talk about his problems.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you dependent.
Yeah. Right. They again, this is all about the patriarchy. Like John is the patriarch of the family. He's supposed to support everybody, feed everybody, keep everybody safe, provide,
there aren't supposed to be any problems.
Right. And the wife doesn't contribute much more than just being supportive and homemaking and that kind of stuff. Right. It's the traditional family dynamic, and you see the pressure that it puts on the husband, and it completely leaves out the wife. Like, it's not, what's the term? It's not equally yoked.
Like that podcast.
Like the podcast that you've been listening to and telling me about. like they're not equal in this kind of relationship. You know, the responsibilities are not equal.
Yeah, because he still never even tells her exactly what the problem is. But she shows up at the council meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, are you ready for their answer about learning dependence?
Yeah.
Okay. Cody is summing up the lesson that John is learning throughout the movie. It is closely related to the lesson that Cody himself is learning. I was
just going to say that. It's what Cody's supposed to be learning,
right.
too.
It's again, everything's a metaphor.
Right.
The lesson is that while we are individuals who are responsible for our teammates, our families, and ourselves, we aren't supposed to be, quote, lone rangers, out there doing everything on our own. John had to learn to depend on God for strength and grace. He was incapable of holding it all together on his own. When he finally begins to entrust his family and his livelihood to God, he is finally free to fight, work, and love the way that he is supposed to. If we would learn the same lesson, we would experience the same freedom, the freedom of dependence.
So you're supposed to be dependent on God, which is what I figured that was going to go to.
Right, which is something that we've kind of touched on before in other episodes, like the idea that you have to surrender everything about you to the church and to God so that you can learn to be a God by being dependent. Like, you know, at least that's the Mormon view. Like Mormonism is all about preparing you to become a God by learning to follow orders.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't teach you leadership.
Right. At least in the context of, you know, evangelical Christianity, that concept makes a little bit more sense, because Christians really do believe that they should be dependent entirely on God, and they don't think that they need to grow to become a God. It's all about serving God.
Right.
You know, glorifying God, like throughout eternity.
Right.
Like that's what heaven is for them. You know, so at least in that sense, they're consistent. It's still kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. Especially because it's learning dependence. Like, you have to unlearn dependence when you're growing up.
Right. Like kids
you're
are
completely dependent on another person to keep you alive.
Yeah.
And you have to learn independence. Like, I get that there's, like, a fine line between the two. You do sometimes need to be dependent on other people, or you have to work as a team. But, like, I don't know, learning dependence, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not a...
Because you're depending on someone. Yeah, because they're depending on someone else to make decisions for them. You're not learning to think for yourself.
Right.
I mean, in the context of Cody, it makes sense being on the team. He has to learn to depend on other people because it's a team.
Right.
But John shouldn't be depending on God. He should be leaning on his family.
Yeah.
Ben should have been more involved in the whole process. Yeah. And I mean, his brother, too. Yeah. Like, his brother was kind of shut out of it. He was just waiting for John to make the decisions and tell him what was going on with the lobbyist. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Depend on the people you can see.
Yeah, people who can legitimately
actually help you.
Right. Okay, so that's all I got from the study guide. So a little bit more
it's not
religion.
Really a study guide.
Yeah, a little bit more religion than what you get in the movie. Any other thoughts or comments?
No.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that is our show.
Thanks for listening.
If you would like to contact us, you can email us at skepticsquaredpodcast@gmail.com. And you can check out the show's blog at www.skepticsquaredpodcast.blogspot.com. And as always, you can rate us and leave a review on iTunes. And that's all that we got, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We will see you next time on the Skeptic Squared podcasts.
Talk to you later. Please comment and review.
Please.
We're still waiting for someone. Just one person.
Please do.
It'd be great.
Please do.
Yeah. Even if it's to tell us that we're terrible.
Which would be fun.
It would be fine, because then we have something to build on.